We celebrate at Christmas, but we also remember as Christ followers our high and holy responsibility to care about people around the world. And my guest, Gary Haugen, is with us, and he has written a book that is just phenomenal. It's called The Locust Effect. This is a big book. It's an important book. The subtitle is this: Why the End of Poverty Requires the End of Violence. The book is endorsed by former President Bill Clinton, as well as former U.S. Secretary of State Madeleine Albright. Gary, welcome to the program.
Thanks, John.
And I should mention that you are founder and for the last 18 years leader of the International Justice Mission,
Right.
which is making a huge difference all over the world. Why did you write the book?
Well, I'm trying to tell a story here that remains hidden underneath the surface of poverty, because we have for decades as Christians and people of goodwill around the world tried to fight against global poverty, but there's just no way that we can prevail in that fight if we're not protecting the poor from violence, from sexual violence, slavery, having their land stolen, police abuse. This is an epidemic of violence against the poor that has to stop before they can ever move forward.
Someone quoted you, or perhaps it's a quote from the book, that says, like a plague of locusts, the lawless violence in our world destroys everything in its path. At core here, are we talking here about issues of corrupt leadership, corrupt institutions, not just around the world, but also in some places in North America?
Well, at the core of it is a finding by the United Nations a couple years ago which said, quote, most poor people live outside the protection of law. And what that means is that if you are poor in the world, you have no law enforcement that actually is going to come and protect you from violence, because criminal justice systems in the developing world are just utterly broken. So this is leaving poor people completely exposed. People with money and wealth in the developing world, they pay for private security. But the common poor person is depending upon local police and law enforcement that ends up being corrupt and many times predatory. And so we can give all kinds of goods and services to the poor, but if we don't restrain the bullies from taking it all away, we'll be disappointed by the results.
One of the passions of my life is studying leadership growth and development. And I've traveled a lot around the world, as you have, and always distraught when I look at corruption of leadership.
Right.
And you write here, you outline that poor people are being affected by corrupt leaders, police departments, local strongmen. Mm-hmm. And then you have a very important phrase here I wish you would comment on, is you say that safety is the first civil right. Can you help us understand that?
Right. Well, you can imagine that if you're not safe, nothing else matters. So if someone's bringing you fresh water, or they're bringing you food or education or assistance in some way, but they're not protecting you from violent people who can come and just steal those things away, assault you. For instance, education of girls is very, very important, but studies are now showing that the primary reason girls are not going to school in the developing world is violence. Violence on the way to school, at schools, violence in the home. So fundamentally, we need to protect the poor from violence so they have that solid ground to move forward and build a future.
It's an important book. You paint some very ugly pictures in the book. You talk about in Nairobi, Kenya, that men can rape a poor girl and just simply toss them 50 cents in a horrible manner as well.
Right.
You talk as well that you say that in the remote areas of Peru, there are 10 to 13-year-old girls living in remote areas of that country that are routinely raped.
Right. So we're serving in communities where 40% of girls will be victims of rape or attempted rape by the age of 14. So this is when you think of global poverty, right, you picture shacks and dirty water and disease,
right.
But you don't picture the violence. So we're trying to bring the violence to the surface and show that there's something we can do about it.
So what is it that we can do? You know, we here for years have been involved in relief and development. We are actively engaged. We spent, in fact, an early week in December talking about areas where we're trying to do relief and development in Kenya and Uganda with sustainability projects.
Right.
We're also engaged in helping here in First Nations work in Canada. What is it that IJM is saying we can do to tilt this in a terrible direction? I mean, as I understand, you have to curse the darkness, but at the same time, what hope do we have? Where's the light?
Yeah. Well, first of all, you gotta go into the darkness, right? I mean, we're the light of the world, Jesus says. But the light is not useful if it's not going into the places of darkness. So that's the first thing I want people to understand, is that it's actually possible to bring rescue. We will this year bring rescue at International Justice Mission to about 4,000 individual victims of slavery, of sexual assault, of widows being thrown off their land. But it's possible to actually bring rescue. So that's one of the important things that people need to understand, that not only can rescue be brought, but we can actually bring the criminals to justice. And when you do this, it changes the calculation about what people can get away with. In Isaiah 1:17, it says, "Seek justice, rescue the oppressed, defend the orphan, and plead for the widow." And God never gives us a ministry without also the power of His Holy Spirit to do it. And that's just the hope that we need to recover for the world.
We have your website on the screen throughout this interview, and we hope people will go there to find out how more they can get involved. And I'm so encouraged to say to you that are watching, that are supporters, we love partnering with organizations like International Justice Mission. And in fact, some of the work that you're doing to help us free girls from sexual slavery in Southeast Asia, and as well bring the criminals to justice, that's done because in partnership with you, and we are very, very grateful. Gary, talk about what this locust effect is like. You know, we have biblical analogies of locusts. It's like when good people do nothing, this could get to a point where it could be so devastating, and we're looking at millions of young people, the most vulnerable among us,
Sure.
children and women,
Right.
being victims of horrible crimes.
Right. Well, let's just take the problem of slavery today. There are more than 35 million people held in slavery in our world today.
Say that one more time.
35 million people. The Global Slavery Index came out just last month, and it documents that there's more people in slavery today than in any other time in human history. But they are overwhelmingly the poorest among us, and there are 2.5 billion people living off $2 or less a day, and they're chronically vulnerable to violence. But they can have a future if they're safe, so then they can move forward for their families.
You're right, the massive sinkhole of violence it's that is swallowing up the hope of the poor.
Right. Yeah. You can imagine we provide, as a global community, assistance to widows and orphans in Africa, for instance, especially because of the AIDS epidemic. But what we find now is that predatory forces in these communities will steal the widow's land away. And now she's left destitute. She can't even begin to provide a garden or a home for her orphans that she's caring for. But if she can be secure on her land, if we can make sure that those predators are sent to jail, she can be safe, she can build a future, and she can give a witness for hope in her own community.
Gary, this Locust Effect is a great book. Is there a video that accompanies this? I know we have a clip of a minute I want to show here briefly, but is there a video that's available as a result of this?
Yes, so if you go to the website, ijm.ca, you'll be able to see a number of resources there that help provide information for folks to understand the Locust Effect.
Let's take a look at this clip. It's very compelling, and then we'll come back and talk more about the book and the problem and the solution. Everyone deserves to be safe. That is the presupposition of this book. It's called The Locust Effect. Gary Haugen is our guest. This is a Washington Post bestseller. He authors this with it's Victor Boutros?
Correct.
Very good and outstanding work. This, by the way, this is a book for those of you that are watching in Ottawa. This is a book for lawmakers. For those of you that are watching across the United States that are leaders in state houses, as well as those that are watching with federal role in government, you need to get this book. It's a book for lawmakers, politicians, law enforcement officers, peace officers, those of you that are anti-poverty activists, and that's where your passion is. You need to get The Locust Effect. Well done, Gary.
Thank you.
Yeah, well done. What's the thing that's keeping privileged nations like the United States and Canada from doing more and getting more involved in stopping this violence to poverty connection?
I think number one, most of us just have no idea what it means to live outside the protection of law. There was a story just a few months ago of actually a woman in Oregon who called 911 because there was an intruder coming in the window to attack her. And she found out from the 911 operator that because of budget cuts, law enforcement couldn't come to rescue her. And for a moment when people think about that, what if law enforcement wasn't there for you? When we get a picture of that, we understand what 2 billion of the world's poorest people face. And so two things need to change. Number one, we need to change the conversation about poverty so we are including the concern about violence. And then secondly, we need to begin to actually address the violence by making sure that those who are perpetrating these abuses actually pay a consequence for it.
And then turn the heat up on those around the world who are in political positions to understand that you can't allow this you just can't turn culturally your head to the issues. You're in leadership. You need to do something about it. And their organizations like yours can turn up the heat.
Well, for sure. And we can work, as we do, always in partnership with the local government because they're responsible for protecting the people. But it will take this sort of global surge of public demand that not only do we address the hunger and the disease and the fresh water, but we address the problem of basic safety.
Gary, prior to 18 years ago launching the ministry, tell folks the position that you had or the DC connections that you had and how you were engaged.
Well, I used to be a prosecutor at the U.S. Department of Justice. In 1994, I was sent to Rwanda to be the director of the UN genocide investigation. And there I saw the decimating effect of violence. But what I've learned now is that the greatest violence the poor face is not the headline-grabbing violence we see like wars and genocide, but the everyday violence of slavery, sexual assault, and abuse. And that needs to stop by first us opening our eyes to it, but then also recovering the hope to actually stop it.
Thank you for writing the book, and thank you for your courage and the ability that God's given you to mobilize people and thoughts. And thanks for putting one good word next to another good word to make a difference here. I do hope you'll get the book. It's called The Locust Effect. It is available to you on our e-store, and we hope that you'll go there and that you'll get it. It's a big read. It's an important book, and it's something that I think that will stimulate your mind and stir your heart. And I also encourage you to go to ijm.ca and learn how you can be more engaged as helping the poor better their lives, as together we help people in places around the world in violence, so that people who are poor will have a better chance, and that we may be able to minister, if you will, to the least and to the lost. Gary, thank you so much. I'm glad you're on our team, man.
Likewise.
I really am. God bless you. Merry Christmas.
And to you.
Thank you.